Hello, and welcome to the Flying Cat Marketing interview series. Today I have Stephanie Grawehr with me from Switzerland, who's the marketing manager at Alaya. Alaya helps companies engage employees, drive participation at work in the community, doing things like volunteering, fundraising, and making it easier for employees to have a positive impact through their work. So I'm really excited to have you here today, Stephanie. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Maeva. It's great to be here. Looking forward to chat.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this topic because it's something I've been thinking about as well for a while since I started my business. Like, at what point are we going to be able to do some more purposeful things beyond the services that we're providing and beyond just giving jobs to employees and those kind of things. I saw that you've always been into purpose and giving back. You volunteered when you were younger, right? As an interpreter in Singapore, and you've done a few stunts in volunteering and helping. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. Good catch there. For me, I grew up in Singapore and went to a school, and just in my family, like, this was always a big part. When I was growing up, I remember my parents would always, emphasize giving back. Or, for example, when I was in high school, I remember we had global concerns. It was part of the curriculum where I was. The philosophy of the school was, or from one of the founders, was like, there is more in you than you think. And so it was all about the academic side and everything, but then everything around that, the extracurricular and social service and giving back, was so important. For example, I'm half Filipino and half Swiss. So there were a lot of nonprofits and charitable organizations that we worked with in school to support projects in the Philippines, like sponsoring a child's education, where we would then be able to go and visit them. I was fortunate enough to go visit them in the Philippines as well, and to meet them. And so ever since then, that was kind of just, I guess, ingrained in me while growing up, and that kind of just continued. So when I had the opportunity, I took a kind of mini sabbatical one year, and I really wanted to make service a part of that, and something meaningful, of course, to me. So when I spent some time in the Philippines again, it was great to go back to that same organization that I actually supported when I was in high school, and to go back to visit them then, to learn more about what they were facing then with their programs. And there at that time, I had actually just finished a yoga teaching certification. So I then, as part of their well-being and feeding program for parents from disadvantaged backgrounds there, I taught them a yoga class, for example, outside. And then when I came back to Switzerland, I did a cycling, I cycled e-biked, not that not that crazy, but I e-biked from one side to the other. And so I thought, oh, this is actually a great opportunity to raise some funds for the same organization. And so I guess you could say that it's been a big part of how I like to live my life. I guess
That's amazing.
It's very important to me.
So Alaya Good is should I call it Alaya?
Yeah, exactly. Alaya, perfect. Yes.
So I guess it's like a perfect organization for you to join, and to help companies be able to provide this same kind of thing to their employees. Is it something, do you think it's becoming more, I want to say, trendy now for companies to offer this kind of option to their employees to be able to have a purpose-driven employment?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can say I felt it personally, at an individual level, and which is why when I learned about Alaya, I was like, wow, this is such a perfect match in terms of what I'm passionate about and would love to do moving forward. And but now I'm kind of like diving into it, and I then dove into that from a corporate, perspective as well. So I think it's definitely fair to say that purpose is trending, or is is going mainstream, so to speak. So, I mean, it's been around. I mean, purpose in its essence really is about the why, right? It's why something exists. And yeah, it's really about like, what's the kind of core need or opportunity or problem in the world that we want to solve. And so, of course, that's not something new, but yeah, across like business leaders, investors, individuals are just calling for more of that. And I think purpose is just the very broad word that people have chosen for that. And I think much of that goes to, beyond what you were saying earlier, right? It's about going beyond making a profit. It's about the social purpose and it's what you do for society. What are you bringing to not just to customers and investors, but also to employees and to the community? So, I mean, yeah, I think just thinking about some of the data, when you think about the fact that all stakeholders matter. I think it was last year there was a Mercer report said that like something like 85% of business leaders, really agree with this and are taking a more multi-stakeholder approach as well. But there's definitely things like demographic trends. I mean, this is the big one that most people, I think, comes to mind most often, which is the fact that young people, millennials or Gen Z now coming into the workforce, expecting more from companies. And I mean, that's an important one, but since really diving in and working in this area, I think I've seen that there's definitely people across all generations that are taking stands and expecting business to act. I think it was the Edelman Trust Barometer report that came out earlier this year, where they do like this huge global look at, what's the state of trust in different institutions in society. And actually came out, I don't know what this says about the day and age we live in, but actually business was the only, trusted institution actually, compared to government even, or the media and NGOs. So
there's
so there's a lot of expectations. I think something like 70% or 68% of the people surveyed there across many countries said that, CEOs, business leaders need to step in, for example, where government doesn't, for societal problems. So there's really this expectation from society that business is being looked to and has a responsibility to act, for society's benefit. And that's only been accelerated, I think, through the pandemic and all the events around inequalities, of course, climate change, through the past year and years that just have accelerated that need for action. And then of course on the technological side, because I mean, we do the way that we work at Alaya, what we do is by using technology to power purpose and to make it super easy for people to act. And so I think there's just more transparency and awareness, and there's just been this acceleration also. I think like we've moved 10 years or a decade forward in terms of adoption of technology, just because of everything that's happened in the past year plus. So I think, I mean, I could keep going on and on, about how like, Prince Harry and he's a chief impact officer of a mental health startup, Robert Downey Jr., he started a venture fund to back sustainability startups. You've got large, like big investment management companies like BlackRock and Larry Fink, who are saying the last 3 years in their annual letters to shareholders, saying, look, purpose, social benefit, think about more stakeholders. There's just, a lot, I think.
So I see,
but I'll stop there.
I have so many questions for you.
Of course.
So when I think of a company that's like, okay, we're going to get more sustainable, or we're going to have this purpose or change the way that we act, like, I see textile companies, fashion companies, for example, or oil companies, they have a very obvious responsibility of like, okay, we need to be more sustainable in the way that we're doing things. But when you're a different kind of company, maybe you provide a service, or you're totally digital, you're a SaaS company, for example, where what you're doing, I don't want to say anything wrong, but maybe it's not having such an obvious direct impact as if you were a textile company or a construction company or something. How do these companies go about choosing the purpose, because when you start a company, a SaaS, for example, the purpose you're thinking about is, I found this problem that needs to be solved, and it's not necessarily related to the environment or to social or to animal rights or to those kind of things. Maybe it's say, oh, well, I noticed that people need a CRM that has automatic data entry, or salespeople are getting frustrated by this. That's the problem that I'm trying to solve. So how do I tie that into some kind of other purpose, and how do I choose that purpose and make it a part of my mission statement?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's, I mean, the first part, before you think about activating, and I realized that I did want to mention also, that of course the most important, I would say, stakeholder in an organization is its people and employees that are really going to act on it, and that are really the ambassadors for your purpose and for your company. And of course, there's so much expectation that we want to work for a company like that. We're more engaged, studies have shown that people are 4 times more engaged and also feel better in terms of well-being when a company that they're working with has more purpose and a clear purpose and societal benefit. So to come back to your question, in terms of defining it, yeah, there's definitely a process to really get at. And I mean, one approach you could take is like the 5 whys, right? Which is, okay, so why do you exist, right? So maybe your first pain point is like a CRM, and then, okay, so why? What does that help people do? It makes their jobs easier so that they can this, and then why? And because of this. And so I think by the end of the 5, you'll then get to maybe something like that. We want to make other companies. So it's our case, for example, at Alaya, our purpose is to make it possible for every person on the planet to have a positive impact. So whether you are working in IT, or whether you are working at a construction company, whether you are working at a content marketing agency, for example, it's that you can bring that to your work. And of course, the closer you can bring that to somebody's job, the better, generally. But that being said, if you can find other ways to infuse more social purpose into people's work by, say, let's say you want to use your skills. You have certain skills in a team, and in particular, like tech skills right now is, so in demand, and nonprofits have, certain skill gaps. And this is one area that we see, at least in the nonprofits that we work with, that can really help them to actually implement a CRM, for example. Like, how can you help them to then better be able to reach their audience? Because if you can better organize your database of contacts and relationships, then they can say, increase their donor base, and they can then reach more people, which means that they'll be able to help their beneficiaries more. So I think in those kinds of cases, there's definitely an opportunity to make it easy for people to, where there's not such a direct, maybe for them, like powering and helping other companies, it doesn't seem so explicit. Kind of the benefit there is to allow and give them the time and the tools to maybe help a nonprofit on company time to do that, and then bring social purpose in that
was going to be my question. It's like, okay, so I just see it, the way that you're empowering them is not making them do it in their free time, but actually doing it on company time, the volunteering they're doing.
Yeah, in many cases, I mean, there are a lot of ways that a company can show their support, but one of the ways that we have seen that employees really appreciate, because I think sometimes there can be a question of like, okay, I really want to do this, but everybody's really busy and has a lot of things to do. How do you make it clear to people and build the environment to show them that, hey, no, the company, we've got, we're behind you on this? And that can be by offering hours, like you said, during work time to volunteer, but can also be through things like donation matching policies, for example. Yeah, so where, if somebody donates X, then if it's a cause that might be aligned with a corporate purpose, or it could just be any cause, because you just want people to give and find a cause that aligns with them, with what they find meaningful, then they can match, and that's matched by the company. So that would be another one that we see. And then you can get very creative with other things, like where you might have company leadership saying, you know what, I'm going to do X, or I'll make everybody breakfast, or I'll, or send something if we reach this goal, or if, something like that to really show support.
That was going to be another question, because you mentioned that you match donations based on whatever the employee chooses. Because one question that I've been asking myself is, when I established Flying Cat, my goal was one day to be able to help. I'm very passionate about animal rights and, stray animals and sanctuaries. It's the dream of mine to be able to support a sanctuary. So in my mind, while I was alone in the company, or maybe I had my one project manager, I was saying, when we're profitable enough, some of that profit's going to go to a sanctuary that I choose. But now that we're a larger team, my question is, well, what if that's not the cause that everybody cares about? And I also want to acknowledge the other people in my team. It's my dream to fund a sanctuary with my profit. But now I'm like, well, I have to consider what everybody else wants. If it's really a purpose that we're all motivated by, how do you take into account all of the different causes that people care about?
Yeah, that's, first of all, I love that. That's amazing. And I mean, it ties in actually really nicely, for example, with Flying Cat. And, in many cases, I think in smaller organizations, it's often that there's a champion, and it could be, probably when you're founding something as well, like you also have that in personal purpose that is then reflected in the company purpose as well, and the causes that you then support. But of course, finding that balance, I mean, you rightly said, like, it's so personal. I might be very passionate about education then, and I might then say, you know what, yeah, I would rather fund a school or something else. And so that's where what we find is so important is to offer this choice and variety. And so, I mean, specific constellations or policies and structures, there are many where you could say, let's say we would support, and no, I will, maybe you'd say, like, okay, for every new account, you might have this portion that would go, a certain portion of that revenue, say, that goes to a fund that we can then disperse, and X% of that will go to sanctuary, and then that will go to something that we'll all vote on as a team. Or, for example, I mean, for us, just on the platform, for example, we have a voting campaign feature. And so we'll sometimes, when we're working with companies who want to enable their employees to choose, they'll then say, okay, so we have all of these different projects or possibilities to either donate to, or as a team building, field volunteering, or now virtual volunteering event, and then people can actually vote. Okay. And then they can kind of have their say. But definitely, I think, yeah, bringing the kind of top down sort of cause, and while also enabling choices, is really important, so that people can really connect, on an individual level.
How big, because I know there's a lot of the companies that are implementing these sort of things, they have CSR officers or CSR professionals on the team, which I feel like you need to be a pretty big company to have that kind of role already. How big do you have to be to start implementing purpose-driven activities or initiatives?
Yeah, I think there is, this view that it might be only for larger companies. I think purpose knows no size. We can start just, I mean, the philosophy, the logo of Alaya is the hummingbird. It's one of the things that attracted me and really spoke to me and I tried to live by it as well, which is, which is based on this story of this hummingbird, and then, there's a fire in the forest, and all the animals, are devastated. They're seeing their home being ravaged by this fire. And just this one hummingbird sees that there's a small stream and in its tiny little beak, dives in and gets one drop of water and then goes towards the fire as everybody's running away and just puts one drop of water and then keeps going back and forth and back and forth. And, despite comments from the other animals, it's like, well, you know what, I'm doing my part. And, one drop at a time and one act at a time. That's what counts. And so again, to come back to that, I think that if there's a will, there's a way. And you can always, start small and start with, say, one activity, or find a way to look in your surroundings. What can I do? You talked about, we were talking earlier about your team's skills, or like how you're building out, more content writers and project management specialists and things. So for example, you could even just do you could even say, is there a nonprofit somewhere that maybe needs some help with, skills, that maybe they need some skills and some help with writing out some of their content. Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll say for X content that we make, we'll do one piece, for a nonprofit, and you don't need to be big to do that. You could do that now. So I think it's just a matter of, really just scaling it and finding a way to make that work. And again, just creating that environment where people feel like if I'm passionate about this, I can. And that's where, you sharing that you would love the sanctuary and you would love to be able to help with the cause of animal, with animals and animal rights. Animals, yes, sorry. Yeah. Where, sort of role modeling it and leading from the front can just have such a powerful effect without having to, be a huge X thousand organization. And I mean, we work with companies with 20 employees, for example. Okay. Where we'll help them facilitate, again, that choice for employees for the kind of the bottom up approach, but also then enabling the company to have their own campaigns that are linked to, say, the causes or the pillars that they've chosen. Let's say if they've chosen one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals or something like that to focus on. Yeah.
So you had mentioned before something that you could do, like if we get this new account, then I'll cook you all breakfast or something, which is a great employee engagement, or showing that you care about them, or showing that you're going the extra mile. And then there's other things, which is volunteering, allowing them to spend company time on a cause that they care about. How should you prioritize or balance those different kinds of initiatives? Because I have seen other ones on the Alaya website where it's like, I don't know, you do a challenge for who can drink the most water or take the most steps or something like that, which is great for health and in the team and showing that you care about the team. But that's still pretty different from volunteering initiatives or helping a cause external to the people in the company. What's your recommendation for balancing those kind of movements?
I think it really depends. I mean, there's so many, in the end, if the objective is positive impact, there's so many different roads to get there. And to come back to, as much as causes are also personal and what I'm passionate about can differ from what you're passionate about, the how and the way that I want to support a cause can be different as well. And so I think it's just a matter of, knowing, understanding your culture and your people, and what, is like a friendly competition, for example, by doing sustainability challenges. Like, for example, we're doing a campaign around Earth Day, which is coming up soon, which is in April. And so for that, you might do some challenges that are linked to sustainability, like a big digital cleanup, for example, clean up your inbox, because actually, all those attachments, all those emails, like that's actually, taking a toll on the environment, all the servers and energy that needs to power that. Or it could be, taking the stairs, for example, instead of taking the lift. And so, I mean, that, for example, is one way that you could do it, where people are, getting engaged, but they're also having a positive impact through their actions by changing their habits or trying new habits. And then the volunteering and donations, fundraising side, equally, you could do something like that. It really depends. I think it's difficult to say, put X amount on this and put X amount on that, because it just varies so much from company to company. But I think offering the variety is definitely a great way to go, so that for people who want and whose maybe lifestyles are more adept to one way of engaging versus another, that they can choose. And this way, I think what we find is that you find that there's more engagement because you're offering this.
That makes me think of just a couple more questions. Every time you're talking, there's more like, okay, well, what about this? So I'm thinking, like, if you do this kind of competitive, even, it's fun competition, of like, let's all go zero waste or use a little bit less plastic or do this and that. And what if you have some people on the team that are already really into that kind of lifestyle, and it's really easy for them because they don't have to change anything. And then somebody else who that's going to actually be a lifestyle change and challenge for them. Can you put them in competition? I mean, is that not, I don't know, making it hard for the people who have to make big changes? You're like, well, you're a loser. I guess you wouldn't say that, but then it's going to put those people who already live that way as like the winners. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, when taking on those challenges, you're also we generally operate from a place of trust. And so the way that it works in our team and on our platform when we work with different companies is that, you make these different opportunities available, and there's always a choice of different ones. And usually we have, different levels, because, for example, using a reusable bottle is, and making that switch once, versus let's say biking to work for a week, or something, something like that, are different. They require a different level of commitment. So I think the first thing is we always try to make sure that there are different levels and different types of challenges that people can take. And then on the trust piece, it's that, maybe if I already have that as a habit, that's not a challenge that makes sense for me to take on, because that's already right. If the purpose is to try a new habit, then I maybe wouldn't sign up for that one, because that's already the case for me. But again,
I get it. Because I was thinking, okay, we're doing this challenge with the whole team. We have 5 people on the team. So if I'm going to say, okay, everybody's going to not eat meat for one day, but I haven't eaten meat in 15 years. So I'm like, haha. I can't really tell people to do this challenge, even though I think it would be really cool. But then it's actually, they just sign up to it if they want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could say, look, let's pick these 3 kinds of challenges. Like, well, one would be, don't eat meat for this day or X days. Or maybe you could say, you know what? We're going to have 3 levels of challenges, for example. You're going to, for anybody who hasn't done this before, you do it for 1 day. I've done this for 15 years. I need to do it for another 50, or, but not.
I'll what I mean? Back when I win the challenge.
Can I maintain this habit? Because maybe I'll have a cheat day or something like that. And maybe this week I won't have a cheat day or something, and I'll do it for 7 days. And something like that. So you've kind of got different levels, or you offer, like I said, 3 different challenges, and then people can pick which one they'll do, or maybe they'll do all of them, as they prefer.
Yeah. And in this case, what is, other than, the inherent value of the challenge, what motivates people to take part in it?
Well, I mean, usually, generally, I mean, there's the impact piece, which I think is that kind of, the intrinsic motivation that we all want to do good and have, a positive impact on the world. And so that's definitely, one of them, where you try to highlight and show, look, imagine, I mean, if you do this, that could say, like, that would save approximately this many CO2 emissions, which is the equivalent of, driving this many kilometers, for example, or saving this much water, which is like taking this many baths, to really make it as concrete as possible for people to be like, oh, wow, okay, look, I just saved like this much water, for example. That and then that this is where the friendly competitive aspect comes into it as well for people that maybe are like, well, what motivates me is I want to be number one, I want to be the best one, the most, and so then that's where you can get a little bit more creative and tap into people's competitive side. Or maybe, and we've done this in the past as well, is we have like an individual reward for the person who gets the most points or completes the most challenges. They might, for example, we did one for International Women's Day where the person who got the most, we call them Hopies, on Alaya. And so those are the virtual points. And they got, a donation to give to a charity of their choice. And then we also had a team prize, which is if we all cumulatively as a team reached X amount, then our CEO would jump into the cold lake, for example, or something fun like that, where it brings people together and we just have fun with it. So things like that as well. So you can really change kind of what reward you offer. It could also be something for well-being or for personal development, really depending on your culture and your people. Yeah.
I have a lot of ideas now. I feel like a reward like that, like non-monetary reward, because I'm thinking also in the space of smaller startups like us, where, we're all hands on deck to try to, grow and kind of survive and just provide to the clients that we actually don't really have the time and space to donate skills right now. That's something that I can see in the future, but we wouldn't be able to afford that. But I'm trying to think, what is something that you can start giving purpose with when there's not really a budget for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you can get creative with those kinds of initiatives that, the prizes I just mentioned, which are super fun. And there you're showing your support as well, because you're like, look, I'm going to do this, so
I really like that idea.
Yeah, no, that's a fun one. And then of course the whole, team building aspect as well is a big one. So if you can tie it in, if let's say you would usually, go out and do X team building activity, why not bring a little bit of, doing good in there? Why not, our team, for example, in Barcelona, I mean, here as well, we do other activities, but they did gleaning, which is, gleaning. Yeah, gleaning is, so I think there is a farm in the outskirts of Barcelona. The team's going to correct me here, but basically, there's actually a lot. Oh, sorry. There are in a lot of like farms or agricultural, exploitations, I guess that's the right word. They produce a lot. The yield is oftentimes higher than what is required, and there's a moment in time where the production of, let's say, I don't know, beets, where they've come in and they harvest all the ones that they need, say, to go to a grocery store, for example. And then there's actually still many more beets in the field that could be used, that are in perfect condition. I mean, we're not even talking about the ones that look deformed or, the beautiful uniquely shaped beets, let's say, that you might see as well, but that are just not accessible to the normal harvest, that take just a little bit more effort, or that are really like stuck in. And so gleaning is when you actually go in after it's been harvested, and then you go and you can pick those. So the team, they went there and they gleaned. So they went and picked through those, and then those actually get donated to nonprofits and are made into, it could be, say, to a soup kitchen, or or to, we were talking about food banks and food drives, right? That could be donated as well. So things like that, where you go and you help out.
This has been amazing. So I know that you do have a guide for people who want to start on this. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And for whoever's listening and is interested, I will be dropping the link You can see, I don't know, below on the wherever you're watching this. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've gone through a lot. I've rambled on, but we have prepared this guide. We call it the ultimate guide to purpose-driven CSR. How do you combine both making an impact and engaging your team's employees in it? And it really just lays out everything you'd ever need to know about, from what is purpose, how to define your purpose, down to how do you actually, how do you get buy-in? How do you make the case to your CEO or senior leadership team for that, down to, how do you pick the causes? What's the framework that you should do? How do you get people involved across your organization in different teams? And then how do you actually launch it? How do you implement it and measure the success? So yeah, if you're interested in that, want to learn more, that's definitely a great jumping point
Cool.
to learn more.
Exciting. I'm definitely going to read through that. I have looked at it before. Yeah. Great. So what's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to?
Yeah. I mean, with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, pretty active on there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that would be the best place to find me, Stephanie Grawehr.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I found it very inspiring.
Thanks so much to you, Maeva. I'm really happy we got to chat. And yeah, I hope that it was useful. And who knows if you have any of those activities that'll happen with your team, would love to hear about it.
Oh, I will tell you about it. I'm definitely in the brainstorming process now. Great. Well, if whoever's listening enjoyed this episode, please do like, subscribe, share with a friend or colleague. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.